Live from the bridge at the Launchpad Studios in Huntington, New York, it's Sports Talk New York with your hosts, Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter. Sports Talk New York is sponsored in part by Cardboard Memories, Clearview, Long Island, the law firm of Decolator, Cohen, and DePrisco, the Phoenix Tube Company, PIMS Incorporated, fueling brand performance for 30 years, Prince Associates for all your insurance needs, and Soho Table Hockey. Here are your hosts, Mark and AJ.
And good Sunday evening to you, Mark Roseman, AJ Carter with you this Sunday evening. Glad you're along with us. Great show on tap. The Toronto Maple Leafs legend Rick Vaive will be joining us shortly, and obviously all our great beat reporters and AJ's Sunday, weird news of the week as well. So,
which is a good one this week, even though it's golf, Mark. You'll like it.
I'm not so sure about that, but we'll see. But you know what?
And by before we go to John, let's wish a happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers out there.
Yes, and if you
were one for mothers, we wouldn't be here.
And if you were listening, you just heard, the great Colin Cosell and his co-host with the Sport of Entertainment, their Mother's Day special replayed just before us. And of course, Brett Topel has a great spot tonight about Mother's Day too. So keep it tuned here all night on the 365 Sportscast Network. If you're a fan of the show, we started off each and every week with the Cardboard Memories Major League Baseball Report with John Coppinger. It's sponsored by Cardboard Memories, which is one of Long Island's most reputable memorabilia retail stores for over 29 years. The owner of Cardboard Memories, Scott Stamell, is known for his knowledge and savvy of authentic autographs. He's been featured on HBO Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. Cardboard Memories possesses the honesty and integrity one would want and need from a memorabilia source. Cardboard Memories is always buying collections large and small. Let Cardboard Memories run your next charity fundraising auction. Call them to find out how they can help your organization at no cost. Cardboard Memories is located at 6401 Jericho Turnpike, Comac, New York. Visit them on the web at cardboardmemories.com or follow them on Facebook or Instagram. If you do have a Francisco Lindor and Jeff McNeil autographed Raccoon jersey, you might want to get that framed over at Scott's. All right, John, there's a lot to unpack here. I went from such a range of emotions, and I think at first it was anger. Secondly, it was frustration. Third, it was, okay, maybe Lindor isn't what I really thought he was. The fact that he could go out there and make up this whole story and expect anyone to believe it, instead of just manning up and say, listen, baseball is an emotional game. Our emotions got carried away with each other. I just want to keep it in the clubhouse. That's all I'm going to say about it. I think we all could have moved on. Now it's a joke, and then the next day him coming out and hugging, McNeil and saying it was a raccoon. It's just, I don't know. What was your take on it?
Well, it was all very confusing because it was an extra layer of confusion for me because one of the thoughts that ran through my head was that maybe they did see a rat when I first saw them all running down the tunnel. Maybe there was some sort of animal racing around, but yeah, it was obvious that what happened. They had a scuffle, and they chose to handle it with humor. Now, I don't know if I agree with you that if they came out and said and gave that statement that we just want to keep it in house, I don't know if it would have died because everybody seems to want to probe and try to get the real story here, especially with the media not being able to be around the clubhouse. I think they want to try extra hard to try and get this scoop. I don't really mind that they tried to handle it with humor because I don't think any way they would have handled it would have been acceptable to anybody. I think if there was a problem with it, I would say that you had the players trying to handle it with humor and then the manager trying to kind of squash it with the generic baseball, hey, it was what it was. And then you had Zach Scott come on the next day and talk about it, which I thought that fueled the fire more than the joke itself. So, I don't mind that they're having fun with it. I think it shows that they're not really angry about it. Look, if Lindor and McNeil are spending their time trying to cook up weird stories instead of being angry about it, I think that's a pretty good sign.
You take a look, really it says to me, watch this space. It tells you to track it and see what's going on and see one thing. You're right. If it happens, it's a game where emotions can run high. They ran high. But everybody, especially without a satisfactory explanation, people are saying, what's going on, anything that happens. So two questions come to my mind. Will this flare up again? And two, how long is it going to take for the real story to come out? What's going to happen when that breaks? And by the way, as we're looking at the Mets, if 2 days beyond that, and there's a much more serious issue that seems to develop in this afternoon's game, and that's Jacob deGrom. How concerned are you, John, about the fact that deGrom came out of the game with a pain in the side that had caused him to miss a start already, and coming back out? That's what we have to start tracking and watching. That's more serious than if they tried to settle with humor.
Yes, absolutely. I'm concerned about it, if only because it doesn't seem to be quite exactly the same injury that he had. Luis Rojas said after the game that it was a little lower and a little bit more towards the back. So now you wonder, okay, is he having another muscle that's compromised because he's overcompensating for the first muscle? You know, if it's moving, then yes, the Mets have to be very precautionary about it. And hopefully, listen, if he's got to miss another start, he's got to miss another start. But Ferrari has to run at full capacity here for this to work. You can't just keep trying DeGrom out there and having him pitch through it. I don't think you do that with DeGrom. And I think, yes, that is the much more important story going on here. But to answer your first question, AJ, I don't know if the question is how long is it going to take for the real story to come out. I think it's going to be who's got the sources now, because one of the problems with the Mets in years past was that they had a lot of leaks, a lot of unnamed sources. You don't really seem to have that now. So now the reporters have to work a lot harder. So let's see if there is a source, and let's see who's got that winning source.
Before we let you go, this is a shocker that Mickey Callaway has not been released, but Luis Pujols has. Do you believe that
Albert Pujols
right? Albert Pujols has been released. Do you think there's a good chance that he might land here in the Bronx? I think given the Yankees' need for, I don't know if he can still play the field. It's doubtful. He could maybe play one game a week, but I think he could be a good fit as a DH there. What are your thoughts?
Maybe, but the Yankees have a lot of DHs, and you've got Luke Voit that's on his way back. I think if he comes back, then you're gonna have one less spot available. You already have Judge, who might not be able to play the field. You have Stanton, who's going to have his fair share of designated hitter role. So I don't know if the Yankees are the best fit. It would be a Yankees move to do it, but I would watch the White Sox still, even though they say there's no fit there. I would watch the Reds because Joey Votto's going to be out for a month. And there might be a couple other teams, but honestly, I think it's a rough fit to find a team that needs a first baseman or even a designated hitter that would take on somebody that's been in decline since he signed with the Angels.
Look, the start of the year with him saying, this might be his last year, would be. His wife said it was his last year. He said, walked it back. It's very hard to tell a superstar who's bound for the Hall of Fame first ballot that you're done.
Right.
But every indication, he's done.
Yeah. And in most of these cases, I said it the other day, it's very rare that you get to call your own shot out of here. Not everybody can be Ted Williams. A lot of times it'll be the game that tells you when you're done. Or Derek Jeter, right. The game will tell you when you're done.
All right, John, we'll speak to you next week. John Coppinger heard here each and every week with the Cardboard Memories Major League Baseball report. Quick break on the other side. Toronto Maple Leaf legend Rick Vaive.
Do you own a business? When is the last time you actually had a visit from or even spoke with your insurance representative? Did your current insurance agency sell to another firm or maybe merge, leaving you without the attention you deserve? Prince Associates is a provider of commercial insurance nationwide and represents some of the finest insurance carriers in the industry. Prince Associates has been representing commercial clients since 1965, and we continue to grow and offer our personal services in a competitive and ever-changing market. If you want back the insurance relationship you deserve, reach out to us, 516-822-6550. That's area code 516-822-6550. And ask for Leith or Craig, or find us on the web at www.princeins.com.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York on the 365 Sportscast Network. Hope you're having a great Sunday evening, hoping that you all made sure that your moms had a great day as well. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers who might be kicking back and listening to us now. Joining us now is a man who cut his amazing junior career short to jump to pro hockey in the World Hockey Association when he signed an underage free agent contract with the Birmingham Bulls for the 1978-1979 season. He scored 26 goals, had 59 points in his only WHA campaign, stats that were impressive enough to catch the eyes of the Vancouver Canucks, who selected him 5th overall in the 1979 entry draft. After 47 games with the Canucks, he was traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs, where he'd become the storied franchise's first 50-goal scorer. He is a 3-time All-Star. He is in the NHL's all-time top 20 in career for goals per game, averaging more than a half a goal per game, and is in the top 100 of goal scorers of all time in the NHL with 441. It is a thrill to welcome the man whose number 22 jersey should be hanging in the rafters for the Maple Leafs, Rick Vaive, to Sports Talk New York. Welcome, Rick.
How's it going?
It's going great. Let's start right there, because you look at what you accomplished with the Maple Leafs. You're 5th in goals all time, 299, 10th in points, 537, first player for that franchise to ever score 50 goals for the franchise. To me, that's a no-brainer. Why don't you think the Leafs have retired your number yet?
That's a good question. And I honestly don't have the answer. I don't make those decisions, obviously. I think perhaps if you look at the numbers and the time I spent there and what I did while I was there, I think it probably is warranted to have it done. But perhaps it'll happen, and maybe in the next year or two, and we'll see what happens. I like I say, I think if you look at the numbers, the amount of games and the amount of goals per game and so on, and being the first player to ever score 50 in a season, I think it's warranted. But again, I don't make those decisions, and so it's not my call.
So let's go back to the very beginning of your career. You're playing for the Sherbrooke Beavers in the Quebec Major Junior League when John Bassett approaches you. How did that come about, and what went into your choice to leave juniors and join the WHA?
Well, actually what happened was Bill Waters, who was working for Al Eagleson at the time, and I guess Mr. Bassett approached him and talked about getting 6 of us to come down there, which ended up happening. But, I had another year of junior left, and the crazy part about this is that I probably would have made more money staying in junior than I did in Birmingham, because the Canadian dollar was stronger than the American dollar at the time, and they were going to pay me under the table to stay. But that wasn't the point. I kept telling the general manager there, I said, it's not about the money. I said, it's about me becoming a better player. And I thought that playing against men and pros was probably the way to go in order for me to get better. So it just came down to that. And that was, my decision was based solely on that. It had nothing to do with money, because I would have made more probably had I stayed in junior.
It's also interesting because you mentioned the bunch of young guys that went over there. So you have Michel Goulet, Pat Riggin, Craig Hartsburg, Rob Ramage, you, as well as 2 fairly notable guys. One, Dave Hansen, who already had been in the movie Slapshot, and Paul Henderson, known for one of Canada's most famous goals. And one of the legendary tough guys in hockey, John Brophy, is the coach. What was that WHA experience like for you as a 19-year-old who ended up leading that team in scoring?
Well, I'll be honest with you. It was it was a little bit difficult because we had the 6 young guys, and then pretty much the rest of the team were all guys that were late 20s or in their 30s, and so it was kind of a big adjustment for us. But at the same time, we kind of kept to ourselves. We all lived in the same apartment complex. So we kind of hung out together, drove together, and that sort of thing. But, going into the room and you're getting ready for a game, and you see 2 of the older guys playing backgammon for money, like an hour before, or half an hour before the warm up, and you're thinking, what the heck is going on here? Like, this is wrong. Like, they shouldn't be doing this. But, you know, you're 19 years old. You're not going to say anything. And it was kind of weird, but, you know, but I really enjoyed the season. And like I said, we had a lot of fun, and, you know, we didn't make the playoffs, but I think it certainly got me more prepared to play in the National Hockey League than if I had stayed in Sherbrooke.
So it's also interesting. It's also where you get one of the most unique hockey nicknames ever. Tell us how you became known as the Squid.
Well, that's John Brophy, and John is from Antigonish, Nova Scotia. And of course, I grew up in PEI. And anyway, we're practicing one day, and we're doing power play at one end, and then whoever's not on that unit is down at the other end shooting and doing some drills. So I'm at the other end, and it's our unit's turn to come down and do the power play. And he's screaming at the top of his lungs, "Squid, Squid!" And of course, they all called me Spud because I'm from PEI and the potatoes and everything. So anyway, Hartsburg's standing beside him. He said, "Who are you calling?" And he said, "Vaive." He said, "Oh, you mean Spud?" He said, "Squid, Spud, I don't give a F what you call them. Just get them down here." So Hartsy skates down, gets me. So I go down, we do it. And then the next year in Vancouver, nobody called me Squid. It was just RV and or Rick or whatever. And then I get traded to Toronto. We're playing Minnesota, and we're in the warm-up. And I'm talking to Hartsburg by the red line. Dave Burrows is standing beside me, and he comes over. Hartsy says, "Hey, Squid, how's it going?" And Burrows looks at him, he goes, "Squid?" so then he obviously spread it around to everybody on the team, and it stuck. And that was in 1980, and it's been Squid ever since.
Unbelievable.
It's amazing that it has stuck that long.
Yeah. It's a great nickname. So the WHA merges with the NHL. The underage players become available for the 1979 NHL entry draft, August 9th, 1979. Your season in the WHA obviously gets you noticed. The Canucks pick you with the 6th overall pick. I'm just wondering, since you had already played a year of professional hockey against some of former NHL greats that had made the jump, and as you said, you felt the WHA would further your game had you stayed in juniors. This would make a better player out of you. Was there the same excitement, do you think, for draft day had you not played in the WHA? What was draft day like for you because you had already been a professional? Well,
it was actually weird because because of the merger and everything, our draft that year was in August, and it was a phone draft. So, like, I was in PEI just waiting for the phone call. And I thought Washington was going to take me 4th because they were the only team that spoke to me and interviewed me over the phone. And then I end up going 5th to Vancouver. So I'm sitting there waiting for the phone call like everybody else. There was no going to the hotel in Montreal or going to an arena like you see now. And then I get the phone call, and it's Vancouver. And I was a little bit disappointed originally, but then I thought, well, hey, it's the National Hockey League, and be happy that you got drafted that high, and so I did. I just changed my thoughts around and went to Vancouver, and obviously it didn't work out very well in Vancouver. But after that, I think when I got traded to Toronto, I think that's the best thing that ever happened to me.
So when you say it didn't work out in Vancouver, it's surprising. I mean, obviously they were so interested. They used a 1st-round draft pick for you. You only played there 47 games, but you had 13 goals. Why do you think they kind of gave – I mean, you're 19, 20 years old at that point. Why do you think they gave up on you so quickly?
Well, I think Harry Neal was a coach, and he kind of took over from Jake Milford as the general manager as well, because Jake was sick at the time. He was in the hospital, and Harry, I think it started in exhibition. We were playing LA, and I can't remember the guy's name. He was one of their tough guys. We were up 3 or 4 goals, and he wanted to fight me. And I said, well, why would I fight you? Because we're up 3 or 4 goals. Why would I give you a chance to change the momentum of the game? And so I didn't fight him. And then I think that bothered Harry, and Harry kind of, from there, then he said I was out of shape and everything. Said he beat me in the 5K run that we had in training camp, which is bullshit, because I don't think Harry could even walk 5 kilometers back then, let alone run and beat me. But so anyway, it got worse, and then the next thing I know, I'm sitting in the press box and I'm not even playing. I mean, I don't even think I played the last probably 15 games that I was in Vancouver, and then the big trade happened, and the next thing I know, I'm playing probably 23, 24 minutes a game, and playing with the best players, and everything started to kind of come together.
Absolutely. And it's interesting also because the Leafs at that time are owned by Harold Ballard, who is one of the most detested owners in NHL history. Did you have much interaction with him? And for someone that was around the team, was he as bad as history makes him out to be as an owner?
Yeah, I would say as an owner, he probably was. I mean, as a person, until he got senile, which probably in around 87, 88, in around there, he started to get really grumpy, and he wasn't a fun guy to be around, but he was in the room all the time. He treated the players pretty good. The only thing he didn't do is didn't pay us what we should have been paid, probably. He was cheap. He didn't pay for a good general manager. He did, and then he wouldn't pay for a good coach. So, we didn't have the guy that could make that deal at the deadline to get us over the hump. We didn't have coaching staffs that had good systems that they could put into place, because we had good players and we drafted pretty good, but a lot of mistakes were made. And that was due largely in part because Harold wouldn't pay to have good people running the organization.
So you mentioned that it was probably the best thing for you being traded to the Leafs. You come into your own in your first full season, you start and you put up 7 straight seasons of 30 or more goals, including 3 50 or more goal seasons, 3 straight All-Star appearances. How frustrating is it having those career years on teams that rarely made to the playoffs and even very rarely even went around when they did?
It was very, very, very tough. I mean, it was very frustrating at times. You can go out and do a lot of things individually and, score 50 goals, whatever the case might be. And yeah, I mean, that's good, but, we play the game to win. And that was the thing that was most frustrating out of everything. Not just there, but even in Chicago, same thing. You put up 43 goals, but you don't win. Winning is what you play for, and I didn't get the opportunity to get close to that, and that was the most frustrating part about my entire career. Really, is that the furthest I ever got was the second round, and when I look back at it, that bothers me because. You play to win a Stanley Cup, and I never really got even close to it.
The original 6 to this day is something extremely special to anyone who follows the game of hockey or plays the game of hockey. The Toronto Maple Leafs, you could equate them to being the New York Yankees and maybe the Montreal Canadiens in that same breath. Maybe they're the St. Louis Cardinals. But, I have to imagine holding the single season record for one of the most storied franchises in hockey, as well as being a captain during your time there, has to hold some significance to you. How important are those two things when you look back on your career?
Well, I think they're very important. I mean, obviously, as long as the franchise has been around, and of course, in 1982, when I got 50, I mean, I didn't even know that nobody had ever scored 50 goals in a season for Toronto. I found out when I was around 44 or 45 goals, and the press started talking to me and saying, well, what would it be like to be the first player to score 50? I went, really? I said, you got to be kidding me. I mean, all the great players that played for this franchise over the years and nobody's ever done it. So that was a pretty significant achievement. And, but, I love playing in Toronto because I love the pressure. That was one of the things that I could handle. I could handle the pressure of playing in a city where the pressure is on, the fans know the game extremely well, and they got a very passionate fan base. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I know there's a lot of people that can't handle that. And I think if you don't have thick skin, Toronto, Montreal, probably New York, those are not places where you want to play if you don't have thick skin. And fortunately for me, I did.
Yeah, you move on to yet another original six as you traded with Steve Thomas, Bob McGill to the Blackhawks in exchange for Al Secord and Eddie Olczyk before the 87 season. You scored 43 goals in your first season in Chicago, that under Bob Murdoch. The following season, Mike Keenan's brought in. What were your years with the Blackhawks like? And, people that don't know Coach Brophy but know Mike Keenan kind of equate the two in temperament. Were they similar?
You know what? They were and they weren't. I mean, John wasn't as, I guess, like he didn't run the bench as quite as good as Mike Keenan was a good coach. Don't get me wrong. Mike Keenan ran the bench extremely well. We were very well prepared. Practices were unbelievable. They were 45, 50 minutes, high tempo, where Broke was a little bit different. Broke didn't really have systems and stuff like that. And our practices weren't quite as good. And a lot of bag skates from Broke and that sort of thing. Of course, we had that from Mike too, but Iron Mike, they call him. And, but that was frustrating. I loved Chicago, the playing in the stadium and everything. And the first year, everything kind of went pretty good, except, again, we didn't win. And then Mike comes in, and then all of a sudden I can't play. I'm not good enough to play. And I remember times where sitting on the bench and, Mike wouldn't even call my name. I played mainly just on the power play. I'd go stand in front of the net, get cross-checked and hacked and whacked and that sort of thing. And Mike would kind of just give me a little boot in the rear end, and when it was time to go out and go on the power play. And I don't know why, but I in Mike's mind, I guess he figured I wasn't good enough to play on that team. I don't know where that came from, but at the end of the day, I ended up getting traded. And the worst part about that was I got traded the day after Christmas, and my in-laws were in town. My wife was pregnant. Well, I had a 2-year-old son already. And then all of a sudden I got to get a 1:00 flight to Buffalo on the day after Christmas.
Oh.
And that really pissed me off. And then to boot, I get to the airport. There's a huge snowstorm. I don't get out of there until about 7. So I don't make it in time to play the game in Buffalo. And then I don't see my family until February 4th, I think it was, right after the All-Star game or during the All-Star break. And so anyway, I mean, Mike was a good coach. I give him 100% backing on the fact that he was very well prepared and a good coach. He ran the bench well. But his antics and the way he treated people and the things he would say to some of the players in front of his team, in front of your teammates, was, totally wrong.
Talk about insult to injury. It's bad enough you get traded the day after Christmas, but then you find out it's to Buffalo. That's a double whammy. You mentioned your son. Your son Justin was a 4th-round draft pick in the 2007 NHL entry draft of the Anaheim Ducks. He's played for the LA AHL affiliates of both local teams here, the New York Islanders and New York Rangers. Currently a member of the Fort Wayne Comets. Which is more nerve-wracking for you, watching him play or when you used to play?
Oh, definitely watching him play. There's no question. I mean, he's a big man. He's 6'6", 245, and obviously part of his game is playing a tough style of game and playing a very, very physical part. So obviously there's fights and stuff like that. But I get more nervous watching him, just, because every time there's a collision or a fight or something, like I'm holding my breath, just, okay, get out of this without getting hurt or get a bad injury or something like that. So it's a lot tougher watching him than playing the game yourself, because I felt that I was always in control of what I was doing, but I don't have any control over what he does. So watching him play is a lot tougher.
Speaking of that, I mean, he was in the Rangers system. He certainly could have been a factor if he was here last week against Tom Wilson, for sure. The Toronto Maple Leafs are trying to break a 53-year drought, as they the last cup they won was 1967. They won a very tough division. It looks like they won a very tough division. They'll take on either the Jets or the Canadiens in the first round. They'll also need to get past the Oilers as well before even thinking about who they need to beat out of the West. What are your thoughts on the chances? And on top of that, what has Spezza and Thornton meant to this team this season?
Well, I think they've meant a lot. I really do. And I think, I give Kyle Dubas a lot of credit, because he went out at the deadline and got some pieces that I think Toronto needed. They got Hutton on defense, who's kind of a guy that he's probably not going to play in their top six, but he's there if you need him, and he's a serviceable defenseman. Then Wayne Simmons in the offseason, and they got a couple other guys, Nick Foligno, which I think was a big, big ad for the Maple Leafs. He gives them that other left winger that has that grit and sandpaper like Hyman, who can go in and bang and crash and turn pucks over for the skill guys to be able to score goals and make plays. So I like their chances. I really do. I think bringing in Thornton, Spezza, I mean, these are guys that have been there for a long time. And especially Joe, who's, he's been to the finals. He's been to the semifinals. I mean, I'm sure that they've talked to the young guys a whole lot. And I think those guys have really, really helped. And you look at what Kyle brought in at the deadline, and I got to tell you, this team here, I mean, I can't see anybody in the Canadian division beating them. It's going to be somebody outside the Canadian division, if anybody beats them at all, because, I mean, they're a damn good team, and they can score goals. The only problem is, can they play good enough defensive hockey in the playoffs in order to win? And I think they've learned over the years, and with the older guys coming in, I think that they've taught them that, hey, it all starts in our end, and we got to play better defense in our zone. And I think they're a better defensive team now than they have been in quite some time.
And Thornton alone, no matter what you had to give up and whatever you pay him just for the playoff beard alone, is totally worth it. Your autobiography, Catch 22, My Battles in Hockey and Life, came out during the height of the pandemic, so a lot of people may not even know it's out there. It's a brutally honest account of your life, warts and all. What made you want to go public and tell some pretty private things in your life and go public with it?
Well, Scotty and I, Scotty Morrison, who's a good friend of mine, and we've known each other since the 80s when he used to be report for the Toronto Sun, I believe it was back then. And we've gotten to know each other really well. And I've always said, and I've told him, I said, if I ever do write a book, you're the guy. I'm not going to write it with anybody else. So anyway, we got talking about it, and then finally we decided to do it. And I said, well, listen, okay, here's the plan, Scotty. I said, if we're going to do this, I'm not leaving anything out. I'm going to talk about everything. I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. And, that was one of the things I wanted people to know, because I think, I think there's a thing in society today where a lot of people look at, players that played in the NHL, NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, and they think, oh, their lives have been perfect and they're multi-millionaires and, look at the life they have. It's unbelievable. I don't think they realize what you go through, not just when you get there and you're playing in the league, but to get there. And not everybody has a perfect upbringing either. So I wanted to make sure that people understood that, not everybody's life, even though you played in the NHL for 13 years, is perfect. And, so I wanted to tell my whole life story, and that's what we did.
It's great stuff, Rick. Thanks so much for your time tonight. More importantly, thanks for giving me the opportunity to break out my Maple Leafs jersey to wear tonight. We truly appreciate it. We also look forward to your show, along with Mike Wilson, debuting right here on the 365 Sportscast Network, debuting this coming Friday at 6 p.m. So that is going to be a must listen. You and Mike do a great job, and we're really looking forward to having you aboard here.
Yeah, I can't wait. Mark, and I'm looking forward to it. And I appreciate you having me on, and it's been fun. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Great stuff. I'll speak to you soon, Rick. Be good.
You got it.
All right. Back with more hockey right after this word from our sponsor.
The Phoenix Tube Company Incorporated is among the country's leading manufacturers of structural ornamental stainless steel tubing, rectangles, squares, and processed flat bars. The company takes pride in its everyday commitment to quality and customer service. The philosophy of the company has been and continues to be to support the growth of the stainless tube market through distribution and service centers throughout the country. Ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing is used for a wide variety of aesthetic and mechanical products where superior finish and corrosion resistance are required. Some products manufactured include tubing for mirror bracket arms, boat rails and ladders, washroom grab bars, swimming pool rail products, medical equipment, automotive step bars and trimming, as well as structural framing for food processing equipment. For a quote or for more information on how the Phoenix Tube Company can meet your ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing needs, visit them on the web at phoenixtube.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-526-2124.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York on the 365 Sportscast Network. We just broke news at the end of that interview that Rick Vaive will be joining the network next Friday, 6 p.m. with his own show with Mike Wilson. And I'm looking forward to that. Mike Wilson was the ultimate Leafs fan. He actually went to all the games for an entire season, the road and everything. And they're going to be doing a really great show on the network. It's time now for the NHL Report with Russ Cohn. It's sponsored by our friends over at Soho Table Hockey. What's table hockey, you say? Some of us might grown up playing rod hockey or bubble hockey or even air hockey. Soho Table Hockey is embracing the nostalgia of those old tabletop games, designed a whole new board for the future, handcrafted with designer wood, state-of-the-art playing surface, unbendable rods, energy-absorbing walls. This is a table hockey game that players age 8 to 80 can enjoy. Even better, the exceptional quality and design allows the game to stand up to the intensity of tournaments, which is why Soho Table Hockey is the #1 choice of championship players throughout North America. Visit SohoTableHockey.com to learn how you can start your own order on a custom game. You can choose your wood, a centerized logo, and even the team matchups. Go ahead, drop the puck. You'll love Soho Table Hockey so much you won't be able to stop playing. Well, one thing that has stopped playing is the New York Rangers. They did not make the playoffs. There has been tremendous fallout. The owner of the team said that he felt the team was underachieving. He let them go. Lots of fallout, lots to talk about, Russ. All right, so here's the interesting thing. So if a team is underachieving, all right, that means in your mind that the talent is there to do better. Okay, so
Right.
If the talent is there to do better, that means the people that acquired the talent are doing their jobs. Why were they the ones that took the hit as opposed to the head coach? And is Chris Drury the guy to take this team that was in the midst of a rebuild to the next step?
Okay, so first off, I think it is kind of weird that Quinn was never even mentioned. Like, even if you're going to retain him, you probably should mention him with those other guys. But clearly he wasn't, so that's what makes me think there was some sort of disagreement, like more than just what was said. And that's why, things happened immediately. So, and you and I think did a pretty good job of piecing a lot of that together, because I didn't believe a lot of what came out in the press, I'll be honest.
Right.
So, but now we're here, and I do think Chris Drury has done a good job in the organization as far as spotting talent, getting Hartford to be a little more respectable as a team, those kinds of things. I think the hard part is going to be implementing all the other youngsters that are coming with whoever the coach is. If it's Quinn, then is Quinn going to keep like Lafreniere on the top line next year? Because that's what he should do. If you want to get the most out of that player, that's what you're going to have to do. Or if they bring in a new coach, and let's say it's Messier or John Tortorella, are they going to be willing to play Kravtsov on the second line and Lafreniere on the first line? Because if they're not, then this whole thing is going to get partially torn down. And that's the risk you run here. And it's not because one person can't pick up what another did. It's simply because you can't rush this process. The Flyers tried to rush the process. They got a break last year when they went in the bubble because of the way the playoff format was, and so did the Rangers. But at the end of the day, both of those teams are in the playoffs, which proves you can't rush the process.
But can you jumpstart the process? Here's looking at this roster, we all felt going into the season that down the middle they were a little weak. There is a team that has a star center who is has one going into the season, he'll have one season after that. Lots of teams before that player hits that season like to move that player for some assets, and that's Vincent Trocheck. For me, Trocheck might be a great fit for this team. What would it take to get Trocheck here, and do you think he would be a fit?
If you want Trocheck, you might have to trade Kakko and a draft pick. And that's what you have to decide. Are you going to start whittling away now at some of the assets to trade to get better at the NHL level? I can tell you that's exactly what will happen with every new coach that comes in. And even with Chris Drury there, even though he said he's going to continue with the plan, I didn't buy that. No. So it is what's going to happen. Trocheck is probably a cheaper, better option to do than Eichel because we don't know what he's going to be like after next surgery.
I don't want Eichel here. Can't, the worst way. I do not want unless you're trading Kreider and they'll take Tony DeAngelo for that almost evens out the money. You're right. You don't want a player with a neck injury who listen. Hall underperformed in Buffalo. You get out of Buffalo and you see the player that Taylor Hall is. I believe the same for Eichel. Right. But you're right. The neck injury is very worrisome to me.
Russ, how concerned are you in terms of the way this all went down, that Dolan, who was very hands-off with the Rangers for decades practically, is now going to turn this into another New York Knicks fiasco in terms of coming in, making the move, getting his one favorite trusted advisor, in this case Glenn Sather, back as he was with Isaiah Thomas, which really was the ruin of the Knicks. How concerned are you going forward that Dolan's going to start meddling and hurt the team?
Well, I am concerned because it does seem like because the Knicks are doing better, he has turned his attention to the Rangers. But the other thing that was concerning was on the Rangers social media account, the first quotes we heard after all the firings were from Glenn Sather and not from Chris Drury. So like Glenn Sather is not really your run-of-the-mill senior advisor who pretty much stays home with everything and just gets phone calls. He's going to be more than that. He's already more than that. And we know that now he'll be back in the mix more than he had been in, the last couple of years. And I think that's concerning to me.
I agree. And we'll know all we need to know on who's really running the Rangers. If Quinn gets fired and Messier or Tortorella or the head coach, we know it's all Glenn Sather. If Quinn is still the coach, then you're going to say, all right, Drury is committed to this rebuild and he is the guy running the ship. That's my opinion. Right. Really quickly before we let you go, if you are a New York Islander fan, which is the team you want to take on in the first round and why?
I'm going to say the Capitals because they seem like they're falling apart worse than the Islanders. It's just the way it is. I won't have to score a ton of goals to beat them if I could just negate them. And I don't even know how healthy Alex Ovechkin is. So I'm going to go after the Capitals.
All right. Quick break on the other side. Sunday paper. So keep it tuned right here. If you're a company looking to increase your visibility, to make sure your promotional materials get packaged in the most attractive way and distributed most efficiently, then you need to call in PIMS. Whether you're launching a new product and need to assemble customized influencer packages or looking for a more efficient way to manage your inventory and collateral, PIMS involvement helps maximize the impact of your brand's performance. For more than 30 years, PIMS has been helping companies get their message out to the right people, offering personalized distribution services and full-scale inventory management solutions. PIMS works its magic on 3 continents, backed by 350,000 square feet of warehouse space. If you're looking for experience, PIMS is it. They've shipped more than 13 million packages and elevated more than 8,000 brands. Want to know more? Check them out on the web, PIMSinc.com. That's PIMSINC.com. PIMS.com and read testimonials from their satisfied clients. That's PIMS, the first name in marketing support.
You can read it in the Sunday papers. Read it in the Sunday papers.
And I almost want to hear this whole song every week. I wish I still had my Joe Jackson Look Sharp album. But you know what that means? It means it's time for AJ's Sunday Papers. What do you got, AJ?
Well, Mark, I know you're not the biggest golf fan, but this is a golf story I think you're going to like. And it involves Bryson DeChambeau, who was one of the new players on the tour that people really get excited following because he's different. Because he wears the snap rim cap, because he hits the ball long. He has a whole different theory about how to play the game. Well, he was playing in the Wells Fargo Championship in Charlotte. And, of course, Thursday, Friday, the qualifying rounds. And after he played his round, he was 2 over par, and he thought he wasn't going to make the cut. So instead of hanging around, he immediately boarded his private plane and was en route home to Dallas. When he found out, by the way, the winds had picked up, the other scores were bad, and instead of being in 90th place, he was in the top 65. And he had an 8 in the morning tee time. So he had to really scurry to find a new private plane because the one he had chartered there wasn't available. To get back, he left at 2:45 in the morning on a flight, gets into Charlotte at 6:20, drives 30 minutes, starts playing the tournament. And by the way, he plays much better golf, and he finished tied for 9th. Which means instead of making nothing by missing the cut, he makes, whether it's $10,000 or $20,000, I couldn't find out what the money was, but it proves sometimes it pays to wait, that extra couple of hours instead of skipping town.
I just have visions of him have his flight coming back on Spirit Air and arriving, and his clubs are not on the plane, or he didn't have enough money to pay for the extra baggage to put the clubs on. The way Spirit Air is. Right now we're gonna get Kayam.
We're in a holding pattern. We're waiting for a gate to be open. Right.
All right. Mike's gonna get Kayam on the line for us, and then you and Kayam will talk NBA. Just want to give you a couple of programming notes. Make sure you stay tuned right after us. BT Talks Baseball, always a great show. He's got, who's he got? He's got, I believe, Fred Lynn on tonight, and he's got a great spot for Mother's Day. Don't forget the Interlocking NYs is on tonight. Rich Catino, Clubhouse Confidential, Starcastic Remarks, and, of course, Buried Treasures tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Don't forget the always great The Sport of Entertainment with Colin Cosell. Some really good stuff, on the network, and we are expanding each and every day, adding new shows. So make sure, there are so many ways to get the network. Of course, you can do it on the internet, 365sportscast.com. You can get it on the many levels of the apps. You can get Android app, iPhone app, and Alexa. Having difficulty getting in touch with Chaim, you might hear call waiting. He might be popping in. But AJ, I know that you've really enjoyed this Knicks season immensely. But before we turn it over to football, and tell me why you've enjoyed this Knicks season so much.
Actually, there's another story worth talking about. I enjoyed the season because they're surprised. Because everybody said, well, if they win, 30% of their games, it'll be a successful season. If they win 35%, they're finishing with a record better than 500. They could end up with home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. And by the way, when we talked with Chaim last week, they had the 6-game road trip going out west, tough teams, make it or break it. They've won 4 games on the trip. Yeah. And it keeps them in the mix. They're in the 4th seed. It's still between 4 and 7 is really, very tight. It's 2 games separated them. A week left in the regular season. But the other interesting story that came out this week, Mark, has to do with the new format this year, which is the play-in games. So the teams in the 7th and 8th team play one another for a play-in game, and the 9th and 10th team play a play-in. The winner of the 9th and 10th game plays the loser of the 7-8 to see who makes the 8th seed in the playoffs. And what's interesting, when that all was announced, people said, well, the Lakers will be the 1 seed no matter what. The Lakers are now playing for the play to avoid the play-in game. Right. And it looks like they're going to have to, and of course, LeBron, who said nothing early in the year because they were going to skate through and be number 1 since he's been hurt, the team's faded. He's now complaining about the format because the Lakers may have to be in one of the play-in games. So, it's sort of interesting. Look, it's what the NCAA did years ago when they added, the first 4, the extra teams. It adds another round. It adds, a little more excitement. And the other thing it does, they hope, is avoid, the tanking at the end of the year, or sit in your regulars. If you're risking trying to avoid a play-in game, you're going to play your regulars and not sit them out. So we'll see how the play-in games go. They're starting like a week from tomorrow, but it's one of those interesting things we have to track in the NBA.
I tell you one thing: the NBA's worst nightmare is that LeBron and the Lakers get bounced in that play-in game. That would be just it would just be a fiasco all around. But
it would hurt ratings.
What's that?
It would hurt ratings.
Yeah, you
but,
think?
Well, because and it's unclear where where the Warriors are going to finish too. Although Steph Curry is absolutely incredibly hot. He's playing for the scoring championship against Bradley Beal. He sees that Beal put up 50 points in a game yesterday. Then he plays afterward. He puts up 49. So that's one of the last week things to watch. Who wins the scoring championship, and what does Steph Curry do to beat out Bradley Beal?
It's a shame that team, which was so good for so long now, is kind of playing in somewhat obscurity. It's not, it's amazing how long San Antonio held on when players left and they somehow kept on keeping on. Not so much with Golden State, and Steph is just such a great player. It is amazing. Yeah. All right, we're gonna reach out to Jay. In the meantime, I'll do the intro and we'll get Jay Retcher. Because it's time now for the Capco NFL Report with Jay Retcher. Even though it's spring, summer will be here before you know it. And it's really time to get your windows and your doors ready to let that fresh air in, especially, where we've been over the last year. You need that fresh air. Let it in, keep the bugs out with the Clearview retractable screen. The Clearview retractable screen system comes standard with a lifetime warranty, the patented speed reducer so it won't snap back. You get the luxury of a screen door and a sleek low-profile design without the hassle of a bulky storm door or sliding screen door. Call 631-440-1100 for a free estimate. That's 631-440-1100, or visit them on the web at clearviewlongisland.com. How you doing, Jay?
I'm doing better than that rat or raccoon or whatever the heck is going on there in New York right now.
That is for sure. Listen, if there were rats at Madison Square Garden, Tony D'Angelo would still be a New York Ranger.
Don't get me started on those guys, man. My dad called me the other day and goes, "At least Dolan's not taking care of the Knicks anymore." I said, Dad, you're lucky it's not Father's Day because I would have ignored you for the next week.
Nice. All right. So, it's very interesting. Listen, we've seen this before. It's almost like that Adam Sandler movie with the remote control and where you rewind everything in ground. Click, or Groundhog's Day. It's another new Jet quarterback. We're all excited. He's reached out to his players. All the players love him. He looked great in the, I am excited, but where have we seen this before? Should we be excited? Is the hype real? What's the safety net? That's the thing that concerns me right now. I'm excited about this kid. I think this kid's going to be the real deal. I like his mentality. I just like his attitude. But, who's his mentor?
Yeah, that's going to be the $1 million question. I'm not putting too much stock into always getting together with the wide receivers because, hell, we saw it down here in Tampa with Tom Brady and the guys at a local high school here. Now with how everything's going with the NFL guys and, Tom Brady hopping on that call with the PA last week saying, "Hey, man, we can work out on our own." The kind of stuff that they did last year for the OTAs and not having them, just doing them on their own time, you're going to see that pretty much across the board now. So pretty much every quarterback in the NFL is going to be putting certain workouts together, whether it's in their hometown, whether it's in a nice weather city, whether it's in the same town that they play in. So I don't put too much stock into that. But, hey, this kid looks like he's answering all the questions the right way. He looks like a superstar. He's got those, Broadway looks. So it looks like he's going to be on the front page of all the tabloids there. And now he's just got to do the job. But, of course, in my opinion, because he's going to be such a high draft pick on a team that still has a lot of holes, it's going to be rough and tough sledding in that first year. But just hopefully all you want to see is progress. In year one, just get a little bit better. Don't make the same mistakes twice, and then go on and hopefully, he learns and gets better in year two.
For me, the concerning thing about this week, and maybe I'm making a lot out of nothing, wasn't that he showed up. Zach wasn't doing great, but the coach, starting out, saying, "Hey, I'm a coach. I'm supposed to say something to this team," and you start wondering, he's a rookie head coach. Why does it show in terms of being right for his job? Usually guys like that, they stay up for 3 weeks preparing their opening speech to the team, and it's a little scripted and whatever. But, how much does that show you worrying about how he will be growing into the job as the head coach?
Well, that's always my biggest concern is a guy that's a coordinator for a long time, taking over the helm as the head coach because, the defense will probably look a lot like his defenses you've seen the last couple of years. But when it comes to stuff like that, practices, when it comes to game management, clock management, and he's never had to worry about that as a coordinator. I'm more worried about that in-game kind of, when to go for it on fourth down, when to take timeouts. To me, that's what I look at. And hell, I saw it down here in Tampa Bay a couple of years ago with Bruce Arians. His first year, it wasn't all that great with the game and clock management. He actually brought somebody in and worked on that and got better. I don't look at something like what happened the other day as a big deal. I thought it was pretty cool and transparent. It kind of gives him some sense of kind of personability, and I think fans will like that. And hey, it's about wins and losses, man. If he wins, people are going to look back at that and go, hey, man, that was pretty cool that he did that. If he loses, people are going to say, look, he wasn't prepared since day one.
All right, Jay, we appreciate it. Jay Retcher here each and every week with the Capco NFL Report. Just a couple of quick housekeeping moments. We're going to have a great show on tap right after this. BT Talks Baseball. Some great Mother's Day stuff from him. Following that, the Interlocking NY is always a great show. New York Met, New York Yankee centric. After that, Mets Clubhouse Confidential. And after that, Starcastic Remarks. I'm sure they're not going to be so happy with their Dallas Stars. Put up a valiant fight, but then kind of faded at the end. So it'd be interesting to hear them tonight. And, of course, tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, the Sport of Entertainment with Colin Cosell. And debuting coming Friday, Rick Vaive, the Squid, and Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs fan show. Definitely tune in on that. And once again, wishing every mother out there a very, very happy Mother's Day. Without them, there wouldn't be us sports fans. So that's we got to remember that. Have a great week, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy. Keep wearing that mask. We're almost out of it. We are almost out of it. Looking forward to when we can getting closer for sure. We're looking forward to the moment where we can all go to a Met game and fill the stadium or a Yankee game next week. Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch, will be our special guest. We'll see everyone next week. Have a great one, everybody.